Welcome to HuntStand's Deer Dirt. Today is November 10th, and I'm going to be talking about how to target mature bucks. And I'm right in the middle of it right now. You can see behind me a typical early November, mid-November sky. Steel gray, a little bit of breeze blowing out of the north. I mean, the conditions are right. So the real question is, where do I sit? And how do I hunt a buck without that deer knowing that I'm hunting him? That battle, and really the whole challenge of hunting mature bucks comes down to two things. You got to know roughly where they're at. Well, three things. And you've got to hunt them without them knowing, or any other deer, ideally, knowing that you're hunting them. And this is the tough one, you got to have enough time, because even getting the first two right, you can still come up short, because it takes a while for all the pieces to click. You don't just go out, have a great hunt the first time into a good spot. You may have to peck away at that buck for a couple of weeks, like I've been doing. I mean, it can be it can be a long-term pursuit. Sometimes it takes years. But every time you get out and you either see him or don't see him, or you learn something. And you can apply that, either if it's by saying, don't do this again, or that almost worked, let's double down on that strategy. You keep learning. So let's dial in on knowing where he's at. And of course that comes down to a couple different things. Trail cameras are the easiest way to learn that. Right now I've got mine on funnels, mostly open gates and scrapes. And as we get into this part of November, the scrapes start to die down quite a bit, but boy, for a couple of weeks there, I was getting tons of activity on my scrapes. So you can get a quick inventory of the bucks in the area that way. Some people make mock scrapes. Some people put drippers on their scrapes. I just adopt the scrapes that the bucks have created, and then put my camera someplace where they can pick up whatever's coming in there. I did learn a fair amount from the open gates and the funnel stands, or the funnel locations. But not quite as much probably as what I did on the scrapes. October is really when you find where those bucks are going to be for the rest of the fall, for the most part. So let's say you've got a buck located. You want to hunt him whenever possible, as soon as he starts showing any daylight activity. And sometimes they don't until the rut. But if they do, then you want to get after them right away in the spots that make the most sense. But let's just assume that you're waiting until the rut, like we're into right now. The spots that you hunt have to be locations where the bucks and the does that are using that area, where they can't pick you up. And the real challenge there usually comes down to the entry and exit routes that you use. Boy, that wind is really kicking up. Might have to find a spot out of the wind here just a little bit. Hold on, I'm going to find a different spot. Okay, I think that's going to be better. So I was talking about the entry and exit routes. A lot of people say they don't pay enough attention to their exit route. They think it's only important to be able to get in clean, and that who cares what happens on the way out. But the problem there comes in when you don't get the buck on the first trip. So now you're educating deer on the way out, and that's just as important over the long haul as if you're educating them on the way in. So both the entry and the exit have to be really clean. And there aren't a lot of spots that set up that well, unfortunately. What I had to do this year was wait until I had windy conditions in order to sneak into some of my spots. You use the terrain to the best effect that you can. HuntStand has obviously all of the contour maps, the contour backgrounds, layers that show you where the valleys are, so you can use the terrain pretty intuitively, not only just from going there and looking at it, but also from looking at the aerial photos that they provide. That's what I do all the time. I mean, I spend all of my time studying these aerial photos and trying to figure out exactly how to tweak what I'm doing. You get to learn where the deer bed, a little bit about how they move, but you've got to figure out how can I get in and out by taking the most advantage of cover and terrain. And that's where the aerial photos come in. I'm not as concerned studying those things as trying to figure out where the deer are moving as I am trying to figure out how to get in and out. Like I said, the whole challenge of killing these mature bucks, once you've figured out roughly where they live, is being able to hunt them without them knowing, and ideally that no other deer know that you're coming and going. So focus in on that. Like I said, the terrain's important, the cover's important, and even the wind speed. You know, I had a really good hunt yesterday, and I couldn't hunt that spot all season. I've been waiting, and that was November 9th, and it took that long before I had a hard west wind where I could go up this valley and get into the stand without the deer hearing me sneaking in. And I've tried it before when the conditions were still and the deer were blowing at me from all sides. So that can be just as important as the route that you take. Sometimes you've got to play those conditions. You know, wait until there's enough wind to be able to sneak in. That can make it a little bit tougher when you're trying to sneak out, because a lot of times that wind will die and then it'll be still. So, you know, have a plan B too for how do you get out if it gets really still. So now we've talked about the two main factors. First one being, where is he? Where are they? Or where is one? I mean, sometimes the best we can hope for is just to find one mature buck. And you know, here where I hunt, it's a little bit easier than some places. I mean, you know, there's states that get a lot of hunting pressure, and trying to find even one mature buck can be a daunting task. So we found him. We figured out how to sneak in and out. So now let's talk about, you know, what stands do you hunt? I just picked the most productive stands on the best entry and exit routes. So I'm really scouting backwards when I'm trying to hunt a big deer or a mature buck. I'm picking the entry and exit routes first, and then finding the best stand locations along those routes. That's how critical the entry and exit are. You don't pick the stand first and go, oh, okay, now I got to figure out how to get to it. Well, you might have to compromise too much. So you figure out, you know, first, how do I get to it? Or how do I get into this area without the deer knowing? And then you find the best stands near those entry and exit routes. So that's the way I do it. You're looking for funnels. The terrain a lot of times will determine that. The deer follow the contour lines. And again, you can fall back on these contour maps on HuntStand, and they'll show you you see all those jagged lines? Those are contour lines. And that's what the deer follow a lot of times when they travel. So any kind of funnel makes sense for a stand location, especially early in the rut. As you get deeper and deeper into the rut, you really need to fall back on the doe bedding areas. You know, the bucks are looking for the does, and I've talked about that in past episodes, you know, where to be. The bucks are looking for the does. So you got to try to get on the fringe of these doe bedding areas, or funnels between two doe bedding areas. The funnels between can be a lot easier to hunt because the deer aren't usually there all the time. They pass through, you know, the bucks specifically. But when you start hunting the fringe of the doe bedding areas, that can be a tricky proposition. And I always save that until the part of the rut when the bucks are not traveling well, where they're really after the does. They're spending all of their time locked in on trying to find a doe, not just moving, but I mean like with the does. So when the does are starting to come into estrus, the doe bedding areas are the place to be. Prior to that, the funnels work pretty well. So for me, hunting the Midwest, up until about now, today's the 10th, maybe up until the 12th, I'm still pretty good on hunting the funnels between doe bedding areas. But after that, then I'm going to fall back on the bedding areas themselves because the bucks aren't traveling as much. They've either got a hot doe or they're right in those locations where those deer concentrate. So the final piece of the puzzle is the one that I can't help you with, unfortunately, and that is having the time to put in. And you know, I look at it like it's a gas pump on your truck. You know, you're squeezing the handle, and the harder you squeeze it, the quicker the gas goes into your truck. Well, that's if you're hunting great locations. That's when the gas is going in fast. But you still have to hold the handle for a while before the tank is full. If you're hunting poorer locations, you're not squeezing the handle quite as hard, so it takes a lot longer for the gas tank to fill. So again, where you hunt is going to determine, you know, how long it takes to kill a nice buck, and you know, even a little bit to a lesser extent, you know, how you hunt. So the point is, eventually the tank gets full, or in this case with the analogy, you know, you end up tagging one of these or getting an opportunity at one of these mature bucks. But time is definitely the final aspect of the equation for success. So this is my final episode in the Deer Dirt series. Hope you've enjoyed it, and good luck hunting.